Good morning. You're listening to WPVM LP in Asheville, North Carolina, 103.7 on your dial and globally at WPVMFM.org. I'm your host, Laura Wagenknecht, President and owner of Mosaic Business Consulting, and you're listening to In Awe, which stands for Inspiring and Advancing Women's Excellence, on every Thursday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It focuses on all aspects of women in business, in all industries of business, and ultimately, the driving question will be, how did you come to your success? If you're interested in being on the show, please contact Laura via email at laura@mosaicbusinessconsulting.com. It is my sincere pleasure to introduce to you Shelley Hastings, hospitality executive and business coach of Your Hospitality Partner. This is a company that specializes in coaching business owners and leaders in the hospitality industry to create business growth through focusing on five-star excellence. She also created the travel blog, It's About the Destination. Shelley earned her bachelor's and MBA degrees at the University of Wilmington, earned her credentials as a certified executive business marketing and career coach, and holds her event planner certification. She worked for more than 28 years as a professional and adjunct instructor at Wilmington University, and she became a member of the prestigious invitation-only Forbes Coaches Council in 2018 and is a member of the International Coach Federation. Wow. Well, welcome, Shelley.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great, great. So wave to your fans. And before we begin, one of the things that I'd like to check in with you, excuse me, is to see how you're doing during these difficult times, and just how are things going for you?
So, my philosophy has always been when dealt lemons, make lemonade. And so, I have taken full advantage of this time of not traveling and being in my home office every day to actually rebrand my company. And so, it has been very exciting. And I haven't really gone out and a whole lot in it. So I stayed healthy and kept my spirits up. And so it's actually not been completely terrible.
Well, good. I'm glad that it's not completely terrible and you have your health, and I assume your family has their health.
Yes.
Great, great.
Yes.
And I know it's different around the US because the US has different pockets of the coronavirus hitting, et cetera. And I was wondering what you found with your clients in the hospitality industry. How are they doing? And, how are they managing to hold up, especially since I know some of these the hotels have closed and such.
Yes, there have been a lot of businesses that have been negatively impacted by the coronavirus, due to the fact that by its very nature, it is a social type of business and social setting. A lot of the companies were forced to close by government mandates or the regulations of social distancing that they were not able to actually adhere to with their current structure. And so the hospitality industry as a whole has actually been impacted up to 96% drop in revenues, depending upon which
Jeez.
area.
Wow.
Yes, so it has
Wow.
been a very stressful time, and some of them don't know that they'll actually be able to reopen because of the losses that they've incurred.
Yeah, and I know that their losses are compounded by so many of the hotels in particular that I'm thinking about have conference rooms that can't be used to generate income. So they can't then have their banquets and their events. And by not having those, they don't have the need for as much food service, et cetera. So it seems like it just, domino effect more and more and more. So,
Yes, it definitely is a domino effect. The space in some cases has been repurposed at some of the hotels where they've actually been able to house the first responders and healthcare workers if they need to
nice.
be quarantined from their families. They've been able to house some of the workers who were involved in, if there was construction, to reorganize. Like for instance, locally they had to create a separate wing for COVID patients in the basement. So being able to house those workers, but particularly the healthcare workers and first responders. So they've been able to repurpose and actually help to give back.
Mhm.
And that has been a good thing. And also being able to get some of the loans, from the government to be able to sustain the employees, during the time that they were unable to work has been helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing all that. And I know we're going to get back to work talking more about the hospitality, but in the interim, as your background suggests, you have a robust background in other industries and other areas, et cetera. Can you walk us through your career journey and let us know how you got to where you are today?
Yes. So my career journey actually started in earnest with self employment. And so I've actually, short of working at a sandwich shop when I was a teenager, but yes, my husband and I owned a wholesale produce company. And so we delivered to stores and restaurants. And so now here I am on the flip side, actually coaching companies in the hospitality industry, one of which is the food and beverage industry. And so I started with that, and then we sold to another company, and I got a job at a university at Wilmington University. It was Wilmington College at the time, and so I was able to grow my career there. Ended up working there for almost 30 years, and so I started at the front desk as an administrative assistant, worked into the position of assistant site manager. So I was able to actually have leadership and management skills build at that level. And then I moved over from the administrative side to the academic side in terms of working as an academic advisor for students. And so I helped them to map their educational goal and map their career path with their educational goals. And then on the side, I actually was actually the downstate graduation coordinator. We had multiple locations, and so we held two commencements a year. And so I was the downstate commencement coordinator for 16 years,
Well, can you
coordinating
describe?
graduation.
Yeah, can you tell me more about that? I'm not familiar with this downstate.
Yes, so we were split between the state. Delaware's a small state, and so we had a graduation that was held upstate, and then we had one that was held downstate, so that the students did not have to drive 2 hours and have their families go and that type of thing. The population that we had at our location was primarily working adults, so the classes were in the evening, 5:30 to 10:30. So for some of them, it was really difficult for their families to travel 2 hours to go to a graduation. And so we started holding a graduation at our location,
Mm.
which was on the campus of Delaware Tech, a community college. And so we partnered with them. And so we actually had to coordinate between Delaware Tech and us and the sound people. And we put up a tent. It was 100 by 160-foot tent.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah,
Huge. I'm thinking 160 feet. That's a whole
yeah.
lot bigger than, your 10 by
Yes.
10, tent. So,
Yes. So I used to jokingly say that I hosted a party for 2,000 people a year. And so after about 10 years, I actually got my event planner certification. I decided I wanted to learn more about it and see if I was doing the right thing. And I was actually pleased to find out that a lot of it I was already doing right. So that made me feel really good. But now I have the event planner certification, which is also very helpful with the hospitality industry because I
yeah.
understand that side of it.
Yeah, and when we talk about the hospitality industry, it's kind of a vague term. And I know hotels fits under that category, but what are the other businesses and categories that might fit into the hospitality?
So there are actually four segments that are classified as hospitality industry. They would be food and beverage, which is the largest category, and then lodging, travel and tourism, which is lumped together, and then recreation. So that would be anything from kayaking to golf, different things like that. So travel would encompass transportation, so airlines, cruise ships, smaller travel, and the tourism side of it, of course, is the food tours and the different museums. Can fall under anything really that is classified as like a tourist area is going to be, a tourist type of business. And lodging can be everything. It can be RVs, it can be hotels, So it covers a wide range. And
Wow.
then, of course, food and beverages, wineries, breweries, restaurants, snack bars, in a bowling center. It runs the gamut in terms of what falls under those categories. But they are the main four segments of the hospitality industry.
Wow. And when you think about how big that is, I can understand this 96% drop in revenue when you're talking about the food and beverage industry. I know has been hit so hard. And then you've got now you're talking about lodging, which I was thinking hotels and motels only, but in fact, you're saying can include RVs. Does it include Airbnb and that kind of thing too?
Yes, actually, any place that you would spend overnight can be
Hmm.
considered part of that industry. So yes, the Airbnb, particularly a bed and breakfast where they actually serve the breakfast and they're there as a host or hostess, that's all going to fall under that category as well.
Wow. Wow. And with tourism, when you talk about the tourism industry, you know, I think about you were saying some of the museums, but what are some other things that could fall into that category that like when we think about it in Asheville in particular, I'm just comparing it to here, we think about the national parks. Pisgah Forest, we have the Blue Ridge Parkway, we have, Smoky Mountains are right by nearby. So what outside of that would encompass tourism and that kind of thing?
So tourism is a broad category. It actually even includes travel agents or travel agencies. And so
Mhm.
anyone who is going to create an opportunity for someone to learn more about a particular location. So it can be, the parks, going to um, a ranch. Spas can even be classified. A luxury spa can even be classified under
Wow. Okay.
tourism, or under the hospitality industry in general. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
So it covers a lot more than what people realize.
Yeah.
Just because when you think of it, the concept of hospitality is that you're basically you're treating a stranger as a friend and you're servicing their needs while they're there and making them very comfortable. And so within that, those different categories fall under that because you're going to do the same thing. If you go to play mini golf, they're going to service you, they're going to supply the golf club and the scorecard, and they're going to have conversation with you, and they're going to have refreshments. And so all of that falls under hospitality in terms of the idea behind welcoming a stranger in as
Yeah.
a guest and
So I
taking
would
care of
imagine then even golf courses and golf clubs would be included in that. And when
them.
you were
Mhm.
talking about mini golf, I'm thinking about the larger thing. And what
Yes.
about, tennis clubs and things like that?
Yes, that all falls under that recreation
Wow.
side.
So it's starting to get bigger and bigger as we build this balloon you're talking about
Yes.
hospitality. Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
and that's why the numbers are so staggering when you look at the statistics that have been impacted, because
Mm.
all of those end up being in some fashion a social setting.
Mhm. 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 Wow. Um, so sorry. I'm gonna edit that out. So what are some of the challenges then or pitfalls that you may have encountered along the way to setting up your own business that now you've been able to turn around and become successful as you are?
So, a lot of the challenges with starting a business, everything has to be done at one time to set it up. And so it's challenging to be able to determine what you want your brand to look like. Whether or not you're going to be considered e-commerce, whether you're going to do things in person, um, setting up your logo, what your target market is going to be, choosing what that is. And mine actually has changed. As I said, I've just done a rebrand into hospitality. And so one of the biggest challenges for someone starting out is to be sure that they adequately finance their company to get it started, because there are so many, even even a home office on a service-based business, you will still have a lot of expenses in setting everything up, getting the proper equipment, being able to advertise and market, the service that you're going to have, getting the word out and creating awareness. And it's a
Mhm.
big world out there. So being able to brand yourself in such a way that you can stand out
Mhm.
is key to being able to get launched properly so that you can actually have a successful business.
Mhm. Mhm. And how have you been able to do this rebranding that you've talked about? How have you what have you done to do that and turn things around?
So I have done a total rebrand. When I first started into my company was called Synergy Empowerment Coaching. And what I was doing was like, it was actually a carryover from working at the university. So I started out being a career coach. And in working in career coaching, what I was finding when I spoke with clients and potential clients, their complaint just kept resonating one after the other, that it wasn't really the career that they chose that they were unhappy with so much as it was the environment that they were working in, poor
Uh,
leadership,
mm,
or the corporate culture, company culture.
yeah.
And so I decided I wanted to pivot into coaching businesses to have a greater impact so that I was not, it was very rewarding to help one individual person, but there were many, many other ones who wouldn't leave their job or couldn't leave their job for various reasons. And so what happened with those individuals was that they might have to change and go to a job that didn't wasn't really a good fit for them, didn't pay as much money, they lost their seniority, they lost the benefits, they had to start all over again. And so I thought if I could work with the actual culture, with the
Mm,
leaders, and create a
mhm.
good culture, then so many more people could stay and not give up all they had worked for. And so I
Yeah.
went into business coaching from career coaching, and it just kept tugging at me that I just really, really wanted to work with hospitality. I love to travel. I have traveled extensively. I have traveled almost every mode you can think of. I've been planes, I've been in a helicopter, I've been on cruise ships. I've traveled so far 46 states, 14 countries, and 4 continents. So I've had a lot of experiences.
Mm,
And I really felt I could bring a lot, especially in terms of customer service and service excellence. I could really bring a lot to the hospitality industry and really help them to get those 5-star ratings that they didn't always have. You could go to a really nice property, but the service isn't there. Or you could go and get excellent service and you don't really notice the property as long as it's clean. But I mean, in terms of it, it might not be a luxury resort,
yeah,
but you can have
yeah.
an amazing experience.
Well,
And so
and with
it's
the
important.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just thinking, and with your business background, the combination of the two allows you to really get to those uh, your return on investment numbers. Gives you the opportunity to really get into the measurement tools that allows you
Yes.
to figure out how somebody's making progress and how fast they're making progress, or how they're not making progress, and how you can then target those areas. So
Correct.
yeah, I like that combination you have there. That's
Thank
really
you.
neat. Yeah.
Yes, I've got the business background that I bring into it. I have my MBA degree, so I'm trained as a leader. I have a marketing background. I have taught as an adjunct instructor for the university, started out teaching marketing courses, switched to an online format, and now I teach business courses, actually business communications. I teach every summer. And so I've got that combination of bringing that marketing background in as well as the business background and combine it. And then when you bring in the event planning, now we're talking about also understanding what drives some of the revenue, the
Mm.
importance of the actual property and what they have to offer in terms of being attractive to businesses and that type of thing. So it kind of pulls it all together. Plus, I have my produce background way in the back, where I was actually dealing with stores and restaurants. And so, you know, in
Yeah.
terms of quality, so quality management is one of the things that I work with to really
Nice.
ensure that you offer top quality and top service so you can
Hmm.
get those. reviews.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that thinking about safety and quality control and all those things are so critical to the hospitality industry on many levels. It's not just your what the customer experiences, but also your rating via the industry itself that sort of
Yes.
does its own checks and balances, right?
Yes, there's a combination that I like to start working with as a basis. If someone doesn't have a particular problem but just wants to get better ratings and reviews, you have your brand standards, which are established by the larger corporate organizations. So meeting those, using those brand audits and working on bringing up their standards of excellence to meet what the criteria are for the brand audits that are set out, brand standards of the corporation. But then you take a smaller organization, a hospitality company who may have maybe 5 restaurants that they run,
Mm,
or a mom and pop. They always really just had all offer the most awesome food at their house, and everyone say, you should start a restaurant, you should start a restaurant. And so they did, and they're successful because the menu is amazing and the food is amazing. But there are things about management and about really creating that review process that they
yeah.
really don't quite understand. So it's two kinds. It's the brand audits that are set out by corporate, but it's also helping someone to create a brand audit if they don't have one because they're a smaller company, so
Yeah.
that they can standardize their quality and the service that they offer.
Nice, nice. And so what do you think the keys are for you in your experience to meeting those elements that you talked about becoming successful? What are those keys? What are the key ingredients that help you become successful?
Well, my feeling is that leadership starts at the top, and that is where the culture begins. So, establishing a culture where your employees are empowered to be able to
Mm,
go the extra mile, that their hands aren't tied, where they can't do anything, and they get frustrated. So offering that which increases the employee engagement and gets them to really want to go the extra mile for
mhm,
the customer. So I think that that is very key. I think that leadership in terms of um, having a service oriented leadership style where you're wanting your employees to grow, to
mm,
develop professionally and get better. And so you empower them to do that, not only in terms of customer service but in terms of themselves and their
mm,
career.
mhm,
But then also to be sure that the needs are met of your customers or of your guests. I really feel that it's important that you create an environment for a guest where it becomes a memorable guest experience and not just a stay or a meal. They're
mm,
paying to be able to have an experience that they could create at home, but they don't want to. So they go out because they want to be taken care of. They want to really enjoy this opportunity to be with family, to be with friends. If it's business travel, to create an environment where it's conducive to be able to network and that kind of thing. And we're a little challenged with that right now with social distancing, but we're going to hope that that's temporary.
Yeah, yeah.
And so being able to really set the stage, and that is created, I believe, from that leadership position, because you create what you want that environment to look like.
And to that extent, who are some of the leaders that you've worked with, or some of the people that have helped you along your journey?
So, in terms of people that have helped me along my journey, there's one person, um, and I won't call him out, but I would just say I stayed at a hotel in Calgary a few months ago before COVID. And so I had a conversation with him, and I said, I'm really looking at moving into hospitality, but I'm just a little uncertain. can we just have a chat? I'm not going to try to sell you, not even in your country. Can we just talk, And so he was so kind. He was in charge of guest experiences, and he took about a half an hour with me, and we actually had a one-on-one. He let me ask him anything, and it was the nicest thing. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. When I got back to my room, I had a little card, and basically that little card said, in essence, to go after your dream. It was like a
Wow.
little business card. And
Wow.
so basically, he just really, really encouraged that I go in that area. He said, "You've got the passion for it. He
Mm.
said, "You've got the knowledge." And he said, "You really should just do it." He said, "I think that you're going to be a great fit." And
Well,
so he really influenced me to actually make that jump. In terms of coaching overall, I've had several coaches myself, because a lot of coaches have coaches. And so they have been very influential in actually clarifying a lot of things and really being encouraging about moving forward in this industry, in the coaching
nice,
industry.
nice. And what experience do you think you've had in this career of yours? So spanning the produce distribution as well as the time in the university. Um, what experience have you had being a woman in these industries? And yeah, can you maybe say how they might have differed from the male experience?
So, my experience at Wilmington University, I have to say, they are very supportive of females in leadership. My immediate supervisor was female. The first president of the university, after it was started by Dr. Ross, the first president was a female president.
Mm,
And when just after I left, they named a new president. The president that I worked under last retired, and she is a female president as well. So at every level, they are very supportive. The director of HR is female. And so they were always very encouraging about professional development. And if you were in the right position, right location, it was a wonderful opportunity to be able to move up.
uh-huh. Yeah.
I worked at
Yeah.
a satellite location, so we were a lot smaller. So there wasn't as much of an opportunity, just because of the lack of size that we had at that location. Because I actually worked on a community college satellite location.
Okay.
But at our main location, if you were there, that's where the hub of everything happened. And so there were a lot of opportunities to move up if you were at that location, just because of sheer numbers of employees that were there.
And to that end, we talk about so often how women are kept down, et cetera. And I noticed you used words like supportive, empowering, opportunities. What are the specific mechanisms that you think were put into place that enabled women to advance the way, if they chose to do that? What were the things that encouraged women to do that?
I think they had it was very much. So I worked there nearly 30 years. So especially when I started, it's very much a family feel.
Mm,
Um, so everyone was always very supportive. And still to this day, I have not been there for several years. I started my business part-time while working there full-time. And when I left to run my business full time, I still am connected with so many people there on LinkedIn and on Facebook. So it very much is still, even though they have grown in size, so they
mm.
can't capture what they had when it was smaller, but they are still very much a family type of organization, how they're set up. And so for that reason, that alone creates that support system, because people want to see people succeed.
Yeah, yeah. And so, am I correct in understanding then that, in essence, you were treated as if you were either a daughter or a sibling, and that the parents wanted you to be successful? So the leadership at the top then said, we need to pull her up into something bigger and better.
So when you're at, like I say, the main campus, so there just simply wasn't the opportunity where I was because we only had two academic advisors. For instance, there were only like 10 people at my location, so it's very hard to advance when your
Yeah.
location of 10.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the main campus, where there are a couple of hundred, employees that work there, um, they have the human resource department, especially in the last few years, and our the director of HR, Nicole Romano, I will call her out.
Okay.
She actually is wonderful at create. She's actually gotten an award, a SHRM award,
Oh,
Society for
wow.
Management. Yeah, she got an award for leadership in human resources, and so she has implemented programs to help with professional development.
Mhm.
And so, from that standpoint, it's filtered all throughout the college. So, where there are opportunities, there is support.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I get that. That's great. And so what suggestions might you offer women who in their own career efforts in business?
So, I feel that women in so I'm sorry, let me ask for clarification on that. Are you talking about ones who want to become entrepreneurs or ones who want to climb the corporate ladder? Which side are you talking
How
about? Because
about
they're two
both?
very different.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I opened
let's
that
go
one up.
for it. Thanks
So
for
I
that
think
clarification.
so I think in terms of corporate, I think that it is important to be authentic. And well, actually, in either side, it's important to be authentic, and um, to do the best that you can, to know that you don't know everything, and to be open to constantly learning new things. And that's in terms of leadership growth, that's in terms of the business that you're working in. I am a firm believer in lifelong learning. I have taken so many classes and trainings, and I just feel like I'm still at my age a sponge. I just want to learn all that I
Mm,
can. And so I think that that is helpful. I think that understanding that people are um, are human, and so looking for the inherent good and understanding that mistakes can be made, and not thinking that you have to know all of the answers,
mm.
but you have to be willing to work at finding a good answer so that issues can get resolved. Which brings me to the next point: don't take issues personally. Look at it for what the issue is
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
to resolve it, So,
So much easier said than done, though, right?
right. So, check your ego at the door, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of having a business, I don't think there's a greater time for a female to become an entrepreneur. There are support systems in place within the government. You can apply for woman owned business status. And so there are lots of resources that are out there. They're depending upon what career path you choose or what industry you want to work in. There are a large number of opportunities for support in terms of groups and masterminds and things like that that are really wonderful opportunities to be able to network and really build your business.
Nice, nice. Um, so I'm going to shift gears just a little and ask you, with this massive wealth of knowledge that you have, and it's pretty extensive given the background that you have and the different industries you've worked in and et cetera. What do you wish you could tell your younger self that you know now that you didn't know when you were younger?
So the first thing that I would say, it's a two-part answer to that. The first thing is to align your career with your personal values,
Mm,
especially working as a career coach. When I first started doing that before I moved into business coaching, I found that a lot of people either didn't really know what their values were, or they were working in a situation that did not align with the personal values. And that that's wide open, but I will give you an example. If you
Yeah,
love to
yeah.
travel and you have to sit at a desk every day, you're not living congruently with your personal
Right,
values.
right.
If you want to be home with your family and you have to travel all the time for your work, you're not living your personal values. So
Mm,
align your career with your personal values. It doesn't mean that you're going to have an automatic fit, but it does eliminate a lot of the daily frustrations of things that you cannot change if
mm.
you align it to start with. And then doing that for me personally, what I would tell my younger self is to build my career around my life. And
Interesting, instead of the other way around, which Americans seem to do more than
yes.
often than not, right?
And the reason for that
Yeah.
is because I feel um, one of my personal challenges that I dealt with was that I became a widow and a single parent overnight, and so that really I was in my 40s when that happened,
Wow.
and so that really put a lot of things in perspective because I tended to put work first more.
Mm,
And so what that did was it was the sudden shift because as a single parent that was necessary first of all, but it was a mindset shift, and that was what was more important because it was like anybody could do my job, only I can be mom.
mhm,
And so it shifted my value system in terms of how I looked at work. There is a job under normal circumstances, not under coronavirus circumstances, but under normal circumstances, you can generally find a job that can fit your values if you get trained for it and that's what you want to do, but you have to determine what they are first. And therefore, if you're then pursuing your career around your life, you know what you want your life to look like,
mhm.
and then you choose a career path. So if you want to live in a mansion, you know you need a job that's going to make a lot of money. If you want a place that grandkids can come back home to and it's got a big backyard, but it's not a huge mansion, then you know that family is a part of that value system and you want to have time for family. So figuring your value system, aligning your career with it, and then building your career life around your life would be what I would tell my younger self.
Yeah, yeah, I can get that, yeah. And what do you think for yourself is the most courageous thing you've ever done in your life?
Wow. I think, and this is probably going to sound strange, but I remember the feeling that I got when I was standing in the window in a hotel in Italy the year after my husband passed away and my daughter and I went. It was her first flight ever and it was transatlantic overnight. And when we had talked about this trip, it was a, a school trip of sorts. The group leader was one of her school teachers. And we had a conversation about the trip and we came home and she says, you know what, mommy, I want to take that trip. Life is short and you can die in your own living room. And
Wow.
so we went on that trip. And I remember being in that window and looking out and saying, huh, I have brought my daughter out of the country and there's nobody that can save us if something happens.
Oh, wow.
Because I was in a spot where I never thought I would be able to do that.
Yeah,
It never even occurred to me that to want to do that really until that happened. And then I'm like, no, we're going to do that. I promised her that spring break would be different than last year. And spring break is going to be different than last year because that's when her
nice.
father passed away. And so
Yeah,
the
yeah.
year we were in Italy.
Wow. Where in Italy, may I ask?
It was actually a grand tour of Italy. So
Oh, nice.
we flew into Milan
Uh-huh.
and out of Rome,
Mhm.
and we took a 10-day tour. And
Nice.
so her teacher, school teacher, was the group leader for a tour company, and so it was very educational. We were there over spring break, and so we were in Florence on Easter Sunday, and we went to Venice, and
Mm.
just saw so many things. Had the most delicious pizza ever because that's
Yeah, yeah.
because that's where it originated. So
Exactly. You cannot
something
I
about that.
try to tell people you can't duplicate the pizza there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what is your favorite part of this job that you're doing right now?
So, what I really love about coaching is being able to help people to see what they don't see so they can change it.
Hmm.
So, a lot of times people have obstacles that they're up against or certain blocks that have been created in their mind or because they've listened to other people who said you can't do this, you shouldn't do this, whatever, whatever. And so being able to help someone to see what they can't see on their own and then help them to create a strategy to move past it is so rewarding.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And when you're talking about creating a strategy, can you give an example? In particular, I'm thinking about the hospitality industry, how you might be able to create a strategy for someone to move ahead.
So, for instance, in the hospitality industry right now, one of the big challenges is a lot of places reopen um, are the social distancing regulations and guidelines that they must follow. And so, somebody who has always looked at something a certain way, like a full dining room, for instance, can't necessarily see that there could be other options out there
Hmm.
um, to um, to reposition the room. So, for instance, there was an example that actually circulated on Facebook where it was in another country, and they actually created a second layer. So they put tables above the other tables, and so it was like a lower table and upper level. Upper table, a lower, and an upper. And so that gave the distance while still being able to have a lot more seating
Oh, I
capacity
see.
filled.
Yeah.
So, looking at a creative solution,
Mm.
especially if you're in a panic situation, which is the case right now because companies are losing money, and so being able to clear that clutter and look for innovative solutions to be able to work within the guidelines and be able to get your doors open, find another way, start a different service, deliver your service in a different way.
Mm.
Just being very innovative and creative and finding solutions that are outside of what you would normally think of.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you. And um what Well, I was thinking about what led you to to being so interested in hospitality, but I think you've already lended itself to that answer. That you have a passion for travel, but it's one thing to have a passion for travel. And as a person who's traveled a lot myself, I'm thinking, yeah, I still don't know anything about the industry. So, how do you learn about this industry? And obviously you have learned about it enough to coach others and to be a business consultant, et cetera, for these folks. So how did you go about that process of learning all that?
So, process to me is a key word. It
Mm.
doesn't end. It
Ah,
doesn't
true,
end.
true.
So, I have a lot of experience already. I've experienced some of the most amazing trips ever and things within those trips. And then I've had these nightmares that I really wish I could have avoided.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of experience
Yeah.
from a customer side. However, from the business side, what I do is I combine that into a unique skill set and then learn, read, watch webinars, network with people, read about what's going on in the industry, follow the statistics about what's happening and who's impacted and what their challenges are and that type of thing. And then I've been told this anyway, one of my greatest gifts is to be able to look ahead, to
Mm.
think ahead and to think outside of the box.
Mm-hmm.
One of the marketing classes that I taught was actually consumer behavior. And so it teaches you to think outside of the box because you need to think from the customer standpoint. And so order to be able to really offer solutions, I need to be able to think outside of that box. And so it's a combination of constant learning, my extensive background, my passion for it, and just like a sponge reading everything I can because I just love it. I literally sit there when I hear the news about some of these different companies and whether or not they'll be able to reopen.
Mm,
Um, I just cry. I
mm,
literally cry because I want to help them. I want to help them find a way not to have that be their only solution because we all got in this situation because of a virus.
mm,
But I just want to be able to help them to find a way to be able to live their dream again.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. And I like that, living your dream, because I think there's an assumption, especially even in corporate hospitality or corporate hotels and such, is what I'm thinking. There's this assumption that the people who are doing their jobs are only doing their jobs for a paycheck, and the reality is very different from that, depending on where you go and who you speak with, um, and so I really appreciate you saying that, living your dream. I think that's a really big part of that. But to that end, how is it possible that you've been able to live your dream and you have children, and you've had children, you were a single parent? How did you tangle that work life balance? How did you untangle it, I should say?
So I worked a lot, but I got very creative in things that I did. So my daughter did travel competition with dance and color guard. So we sat in bleachers inside out of the rain. We maybe gone a 6 hour day. I prepped for the first class I taught as an adjunct by taking my books to the bleachers.
Oh,
She
wow.
was on the floor 3 minutes. I was in the bleachers 6 hours. So I prepped for class. I took it with me. So being very creative and time management, I actually have a time management program I offer.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had to do that
yeah.
a lot. um, but being able to really juggle that and prioritize opportunities.
Yeah. And when you say that she was on the floor for 3 minutes and you're there for 6 hours, what up?
Because they were regional and national competitions, so there were so many people competing.
Oh my
But
goodness.
they were on the floor for the length of time that their song would be on,
Right.
and then wait until the end until finals.
Oh my goodness. And
So
they're only there for 3 minutes and that's it? Like
that's usually the
one
length
shot?
of it. Right. It's usually like 2 to 3 minutes. It depends on how long it is. So when they competed in a national competition, they were there longer because they competed first at like the entry level for what their level was. But then if they scored high enough in that, it would go on to semifinals and then on
Mhm.
to finals on the same time frame. So like we were in Wildwood for 4 days.
Wow. Wow.
So so it was, I enjoyed the time, that we were doing things, but when we
Mhm.
weren't doing things, I was using my time wisely.
Yeah, clearly, clearly. I can't imagine trying to do that with the music playing and the kids screaming and cheering and all that stuff. And it's got to be loud environment, right? So
It is with the music,
kudos to
yes.
you for focus. We would call that extreme focus. That's great.
Yes.
And do you have, what are some things that you have coming up that in the near future for your new business?
So, so I've launched my rebrand that I'm going to really be working with companies. So I'm in a unique situation, and that I live near a very high tourist area, and I also vacation um, in a very high tourist area. So there are a lot of companies, and so I really am going to start reaching out to some of them
Hmm.
and see, offer, see how I can help them and that type of thing. Unfortunately, the travel's a little limited right now because we'll get there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but we're just starting to release. We just did, phase one June 1st in
Wow.
Delaware. So, um,
Mhm.
so as the restrictions lift, to enable travel, then that will become part of that picture again as well.
Yeah, and I think that you bring up a big issue. This assumption that everywhere in the US is the same is so not true. I mean, we launched phase one, I would think mid May, and phase two started June 1st.
Hmm.
And people are chomping at the bit for phase three, but our numbers have climbed in North
Hmm.
Carolina. So we've got to be extra cautious. So I do understand what you're saying. It's difficult to figure that out and what is the right balance. And certainly we want to see people traveling in the summer and enjoying their summer. I'd
Yes.
love to see things pick up in the hospitality industry. That would be great. Yeah.
Yes, and
um,
I would just at this point love to just be able to help them get to that point.
yeah.
There's plenty of need, and depending upon where you are in the mix, not plenty of money right now. And I want to be able to help them get back where they're comfortable.
And how are you going to go about helping them? I mean, what are the things that you can offer them that would be really helpful for them?
Well, one of the things that I want to do is to start a Facebook group
Oh, nice.
so that people can use that to as resources to be able to share information, because there are so many different industries within hospitality. If someone is dealing with a seating problem, they're dealing with a seating problem, whether they are looking at a hotel lobby, whether they're looking at a winery, or whether they're looking at a restaurant. So creating an environment where people can share that information.
Mm,
um, and then I also have a mastermind group that I want to launch. I just want people to be ready to be able to do that, to get into that. And so I think that those two things in terms of group work will be helpful, um, but also just individually to
mhm,
see what I can do with it, especially within my communities, to be able to
mhm,
do that.
mhm. And where can people go to learn more about your hospitality partner?
So my website is actually www.yourhospitalitypartner.com, and it
Mhm.
lists on there how I can help. And it talks about the different services. It talks about my approach, and it shows the different industries. So a beautiful website that just launched, and so I'm so excited about that. And I also am on the Facebook. So same thing, your hospitality partner. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn, both as myself, Shelley Hastings, and I also have your hospitality partner as a page on LinkedIn as well.
Nice, nice. And so would you be starting a LinkedIn group as well?
I I have a LinkedIn group that was for career, and so I will be either converting that or dismantling that and starting a new one. Um, right now, I think the greatest support needs to be in the area, in terms of priority, the area who do not have large corporate offices that can
Ah,
offer help.
right,
So,
right,
more of the smaller organizations. I'm
right.
certainly well qualified to do all levels, but if you take a mom and pop restaurant, they don't really have a support structure in place like a corporate, like a hotel would be, that's a franchise of a corporate or something like
Mhm.
that. So, in terms of priority, it's going to be to help, you know, offer support where people don't know where to go. Long term, though, a lot of those corporate will be on LinkedIn. And so, yes, I will have something on LinkedIn as well.
Nice, nice. Well, how can people contact you directly if they wanted to reach out to you?
Sure. So, my email is my first name, Shelley, Shelley, at yourhospitalitypartner.com. So, people can
Great.
just email me right there. And they can certainly call. The number is 302-536-9494. Email is a little more convenient, only in the fact that if I'm with a client, I wouldn't be able to take their call right away. And so that way, and they can leave more detailed information in email and I can get back. And there's also, of course, a contact form on the website. so they can pull
Nice.
that out as well.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Shelley. I really appreciate it. You've done a wonderful job, and I'm in awe of your myriad skills, knowledge, and talents. I love you inspire us to be more persistent and try new things. That's what I love. It's great. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me. This has been wonderful.
Great. Well, thanks. And so next week, stay tuned to In Awe to listen to Brooke Babby, Director of Human Resources at the Grand Bohemian Hotel in Asheville. I'm Laura Varden-Knecht, your host of In Awe, inspiring and advancing women's excellence. Here is hoping that you continue to inspire all of us and remain excellent. So stay tuned to WPBM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina on Thursday mornings at 9 a.m.